All right, so our second unit in Bio 20 is ecosystems and population change. So chapter 3 in the textbook, which is ecosystems and their diversity. Today we'll look at a little bit of preview, some concepts that you would have learned from Science 10, and then we'll get into 3.1, which is individuals, populations, and communities in ecosystems. So just a little bit of recap or a little bit of review, the need for reproduction. So there's two types of cell division that occurs. The first one is mitosis, and this is when the body cells divide to form two new cells, and they are exactly identical to the parent cell. So this occurs in all of our body cells, like our skin cells, our muscle cells, our epithelial cells, and so on, all the cells in our body except the gametes. So that's where meiosis occurs. Meiosis occurs only in the reproductive cells, which are our gametes, which are the sperm and egg cells. And the reason being is because during meiosis, there is a second cell division required. So here we're looking at just a comparison of mitosis and meiosis. So in mitosis, there is only one division, whereas in meiosis, there's two cell divisions occurring. In mitosis, there's a production of 2 daughter cells, and in meiosis, there are 4 daughter cells. In mitosis, the daughter cells are genetically identical to each other and to the parent cells, and then in meiosis, the daughter cells are genetically different from each other as well as from the parent cells. In mitosis, the chromosome number in daughter cells remains the same as in parent cells, and then in meiosis, it is cut in half. So, for example, in humans, it's 46 chromosomes, but in the gametes, then it'll be in half, so it'll be 23. And mitosis occurs only in somatic cells, which are the body cells. And then meiosis occurs only in the reproductive cells, which is the sperm and egg cells, which are also called gametes. But mitosis is used for growth and repair of body cells. So, for example, it's also compared to asexual reproduction in some organisms. And then meiosis is used for sexual reproduction. So basically producing new genetic combinations in offspring from one generation to the next. And that's the other reason why we see so much variety within species is because of meiosis. And this here, we're just looking at a diagram. This is, again, comparing meiosis is on the left this time and mitosis is on the right. So if we look here, meiosis, there is first of all, pairing of chromosomes and exchange of genetic information. And then you can see that there's a blend here in the chromosomes. There's a mix of some green and blue. So that is what produces variation. And the other thing we can see is cell division occurs twice. So once here, there's cell division, and then again, there's cell division here the second time to produce the 4 daughter cells. When we look at mitosis, there's only the one cell division. And you can look at the chromosomes are the exact same as they were in the parent cell. All right. All right, so we're going to move on now to 3.1, which is individuals, populations, and communities in ecosystems. So here we're just looking at an aquatic ecosystem. The organisms and physical characteristics of an ecosystem make each one unique. Organisms are classified according to their characteristics. The organisms in an ecosystem affect each other and their surroundings, just as their surroundings affect them. So ecologists examine the environments that organisms inhabit and how changes to these environments affect populations immediately and over long periods of time. All right, so when we talk about an environment, this is everything that affects an organism throughout its life. as well as everything that the organism affects. And just a bit of review, the biotic, when we talk about biotic, we're talking about the living components, and the abiotic components is anything non-living, such as sunlight, water, minerals, air, soil, and rocks. All right, and then we're going to get into a little bit about levels, the levels in ecosystems. So we'll start with species. So these are organisms that are able to breed with one another and produce fertile offspring. And then species can form a population. So this is a group of individuals of the same species living in a specific area at the same time. And then we move on and have a community, and now we'll have all of the individuals in all the interacting populations in a given area. So different species interacting in a community. So it's populations of different species interacting with one another as part of a community. And then after that, we have an ecosystem. And this is a community of populations and together with the abiotic factors that surround and affect it. So an ecosystem includes all the non-living parts of the environment in a particular area and all the living organisms, as well as the interactions that are happening among them. All right, so here we're just looking at an example. So organisms are very diverse. So for example, a brown bear in Waterton Park may look and act very differently than a brown bear found in the Himalayan region of Asia. And in fact, brown bears in Alberta are significantly smaller than brown bears in British Columbia due to the lack of spawning salmon for food in Alberta. So that just shows that there's incredible diversity even within brown bears. Next here, we have pronghorn antelope are a species of animals, and they have a scientific name, Antilocapra americana. And this group of pronghorn antelope are referred to as a population because the animals are living together in an area of the Waterton National Park at the time that this photograph was taken. But within Waterton National Park, there are going to be populations of different animals as well. So these populations are going to interact with each other, and then when they interact with each other, they form a community. And then biotic components are all the plants and animals, all the living components, and then the abiotic components are all the non-living components like climate, water, sunlight, minerals, rocks, and soil. All right, question down here, what other populations would be interacting with this population of antelopes? So some examples could be the grasses or the plants that they're eating, and then some other populations in that same area such as bears and white-tailed deer. So Earth's biosphere, the biosphere consists of all the ecosystems in the world and their interactions. That's what makes up the biosphere. So it includes all parts of Earth that are inhabitable by some type of life. So all the land surfaces and bodies of water on Earth. And then it also extends several kilometers into the atmosphere and several meters into the soil. All right, so all the biotic and abiotic components in the environment that makes up the ecosystem, and all the ecosystems in the world and their interactions make up the biosphere. And living organisms are found high in the atmosphere, they're found deep in the ocean, they're also found below the soil layer. So this area on Earth where living organisms are found is called the biosphere. And when we talk about the term biodiversity, it refers to the variety of different species of organisms and ecosystems that exist in an area. So here is just kind of showing the levels in biology. So we have the biosphere, ecosystem, then we have the community, and then we have a population, and then we have a species. or an organism part of the species. And environments can change over time. So habitats can change over time due to changing abiotic conditions, the effect of organisms, or even natural disasters. So an area that was once suitable for trees can be made unsuitable by fire, rock slides, or any other disturbances. The new habitat created by these disturbances, it might be less suitable for trees, but it can be more suitable to other species, such as moss and lichen. And then over time, the moss and the lichen can change that habitat so that it once again becomes suitable for shrubs and grasses to grow. The graph on the right is showing types of species. The types of species change as time passes. So this is actually showing a habitat that was recently exposed by a melting glacier. So the abundance and distribution of organisms are also dynamic. Population size might fluctuate due to changing abiotic conditions, natural disasters, predation, seasonal changes, availability of food, or any other factors. All right, and as we look at this graph, so there was lots of low shrubs and soft-stemmed plants, mosses and lichens, and then over time we see more small shrubs, and then over time we start to see more of the yellow to show there's more trees developing. Why? So question here, why does it take over 100 years for trees to appear in the habitat in that graph we just looked at? And the reason being is it takes a long time for nutrients to build up in the soil so that they can supply enough nutrients to support the extensive root system of a tree. Second question, what are some abiotic conditions that could influence the size of the leaves on a plant? So lots of abiotic conditions like amount of moisture, amount of nutrients in the soil, available sunlight, and even temperature and climate. So ecosystems are composed of an intricate network of relationships. Populations are affected by the abiotic and biotic components in the environment, and these components create different ecosystems and biomes. Human populations affect most other organism populations in one way or another, so such as roads, building of roads and houses, and human populations have moved into most of the world's ecosystems, including national parks, tropical islands. So in order to protect these natural environments, it's important to understand the ecological relationships that exist. All right, so I'm going to pause it here and we're just going to watch a quick video on biological levels in biology.